It's been 6 years of podcasting, and without our sponsors, we wouldn't be able to bring these podcasts to you. So I want to thank today's sponsors. And first off, we have the Pretentious Pickle Company of 190 Water Street in Plymouth. If you haven't had a chance to get down there, go down and check out what they make. They have everything pickled you can imagine, from pickled beets to carrots to mushrooms to onions to Brussels sprouts and cauliflower. They even have pickled or pickled flavor cotton candy, I should say. They make it fresh there every day, and you can go in there and check out what they have to offer. And if you're not in the Plymouth area, you can go to pretentiouspickle.com and check out what they have to offer there as well, and they will ship it out to you. Their stuff is delicious. You should check it out, and they are big fans of ours, and we are big fans of theirs. So thank you to the Pretentious Pickle Company for sponsoring today's episode. And our second sponsor today is Moonrise Cinemas. Moonrise Cinemas is a new drive-in in Plymouth. Right on the Plymouth-Kingston line. They are located at 428 Court Street in Plymouth, Mass. And they offer a great selection of movies. You can go. It's very family-friendly. I went and checked out the Goonies there. They've had Marvel movies, a wide variety of stuff. And they're really starting to expand. They have had the Rocky Horror Picture Show this coming year. They're doing music on Thursday nights. On Wednesdays are going to be 420 friendly events. So make sure you check out what they have to offer. MoonriseCinemas.com. It's a great venue. They have a beer garden. They have their own food. Their food's phenomenal. And they're bringing back their French toast, which I'm very excited about. So make sure you check out what they have to offer, MoonriseCinemas.com. And if you use code Inebri-art when purchasing tickets, you'll get 10% off. So make sure you go to MoonriseCinemas.com to get your tickets for movies, concerts, and more, and use code Inebri-art for 10% off on your purchase. And now let's jump right into the podcast. All right, welcome back, and let me try that again. Welcome back, Inebri-art. This is Andy of the Inebri-art podcast, as always. And today I am joined by Ivan Doroschuk. Did I get that right? Oh, all right. From Men Without Hats. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, not too bad. So you have been playing music for obviously quite a long time. I remember growing up watching you guys on, MTV back in the heyday of MTV. And it's been one of those things that I've seen a lot of new musicians on this talking about having to release, instead of an album, songs kind of like all the time, like every 6 weeks or so. Like, have you seen the industry change in a good way or bad way? What are the good things about the industry now opposed to back in the day?
It's changed. It's absolutely changed. That's for sure. It's actually put music in the hands of more people. I think technology, which is a good thing, because I've often viewed professional musicians, as hoarders. And
okay, I could see that, I suppose.
And so what technology does is, if you've got a computer or whatever, you can make music, or your phone or anything, or learn it. You can use it. I have kids who are very proficient piano players who learned off YouTube, so it's a new world, the whole thing, but it's always changing. I mean, when we put out our records in the 80s, technology was changing then too. Computers were just starting to come in, and there was all kinds of new things happening. CDs were just starting to come in.
I was buying CDs for my son one Christmas and realized that he didn't have a way to play them, and it was just it's so weird.
That's it.
So as a musician, like when you're coming up with new music, do you tend to work from lyrics first, or do you come up with a riff? Like what's your kind of writing process like?
It varies.
Yeah.
It's usually I'll come up with the idea, like Pop Goes the World or something like that, and then I'll sort of build around it. So I would say, it's lyrically. Then sometimes I come up with a riff, which inspires a lyric,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of the sounds or whatever. So it's all there's different techniques. I mean, there's different ways to I go around it. When I'm composing, I usually watershed. Like I sit around, do nothing for 3-4 years, and then write 25 songs in a week, and then I'm doing nothing for another 3-4 years. This record was a bit different because this record was inspired by our fans asking for new music continuously.
Yeah.
And so what we did is we had started off making a solo piano voice record where I was going to reimagine some songs from my catalog, from the Men Without Hats catalog, and redo some cover songs that influenced me when I was growing up and listening to music. And it's when we recorded this song by a Canadian band called the Tragically Hip, and I recorded it piano voice, just piano and voice, and I got really curious after listening to it. I wonder what it would sound like with a full Men Without Hats treatment, with a full band. And so we did it. We went back in the studio and recorded it with a full band, and I really liked what the result was, and it kind of pointed the project into a new direction. And we sort of decided that it had to be a full Men Without Hats band. We couldn't do his solo piano stuff, and so we started working on the covers, doing the covers up, and then we started writing. Just being in the studio working, and it always inspires me, and I always tend to come up with one or two new things in the studio. And that's what happened this time. I started writing some new songs, and then we started going back into the vault, and I just started going back, and I got songs. I found some old demos that, from the Safety Dance era, and I found some old demos from the Pop Goes the World era and from the Sideways era. And so we just used those too. And then there was a whole bunch of songs that I'd written in the back of the tour bus for the last 10 years that we've been on tour since I put the band back together. So we had a lot of stuff, but it was not my usual way of writing an album. It's the first time I've ever done this. So it's kind of like the songwriting spans almost 40 years, and it's like a retrospective or best of songs that never were, So
yeah.
it's kind of cool.
Were there songs that you had written, back in the day that you didn't particularly care for, that now you looked in a different light or had a new twist to them?
Yeah, it was the songs. Well, there was one song, the last song on the album on the part 2 is called Where the Wild Go. And that was a song that didn't make it on Pop Goes the World. And that was a song that was kind of like, I always wished I would have put it on Pop Goes the World, but it just, for some reason, didn't make the cut. And but I would have to say most of the songs we kept pretty much the way they were. They were. We added some lyrics. There were some unfinished lyrics, but as far as not liking them back then, I don't think so. I don't think that was a reason. It was just, there's always other people involved in making the choices when you
can only have so many songs on a cassette tape or
that's it. Yeah. These days it's okay. We will put albums with 52 songs on them. It doesn't matter. But back then.
So you said some of the songs that you wanted to cover were songs that influenced you. Like, what are some of those songs, and who are the bands?
Well, we put out the part 1 in September. In September of last year, we put out again part 1 EP with 4 songs, one by the Tragically Hip. The songs that I grew up with we did All the Young Dudes, Mott the Hoople. We did 2,000 Light Years from Home by the Rolling Stones, and we did Satellite of Love by Lou Reed. But that's it. I mean, I was fortunate to grow up in probably the best era to be a teenager, which was the 70s, and for a lot of reasons more than music, and also the end of the 70s was a blast also. So it was a good times for music. I mean, a lot of sort of classic genres were kind of crafted in the 70s. So there's a lot of new music. Fusion was new.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy metal was new. Disco was
yeah.
There was like tons of new kinds of forms of music, and so it was exciting times. And then punk new wave at the end of the 70s, and then that was great. Awesome.
I was checking out an article online the other day that said that the songs we hear kind of like 13 to 17 are always like the most influential to us and kind of like really sort of lend themselves to who, we are as people. Do you find that that's true? Do you, are they are you the kind of person where you're like, oh, I don't like today's music, or are you more open to kind of everything?
Well, I listen to it. I mean, I listen to it. I don't go out and hunt it down, but I'll I listen to it. I'm open to it. I'm definitely open to it. I'm a sort of a digital crate digger. I like to go and rummage around and explore and dig online and find records that I missed when I was growing up. That's what I like to do. And sometimes, I mean, it's obviously it's exhilarating to find this new music, that you've never heard before. It's 50-year-old music that you've never ever heard. It also makes me kind of sad sometimes to see how many people put so much into music, and they put their lives and their families and their love and their mortgage and their everything into these records that not too many people ever heard. I mean, it's kind of like professional hockey or something like that. For every guy that makes it, there's a million that don't.
Right.
And so that's kind of what music is. So I mean, I'm just all this to say that I feel truly blessed, to be able to be sitting here talking to you, because there's a lot of guys that didn't make it, even like physically. So.
Yeah. You said crate digger, and it like threw me back to, I went to art school up in Beverly, Mass, and we used to drive into Salem because they had all the used record stores and the used CD stores. And there was something like exhilarating, like you said, when you would dig through and you'd find, a band you'd never heard of with a cool album, cover, or
cool cover. Yeah.
Yeah. Or something that you didn't know, solo project, and it just, I keep saying this, and I've said it a ton of times. It just feels different nowadays, and I feel old saying that, but it seems almost harder to find new music.
Yeah,
Well,
I think rock and roll is a dying art. I'm probably one of the last of the old school, big budget, throwing TVs out of the window, rock and roll school. Things are a lot more calculated these days. It's more of a career choice than a passion in a lot of cases. So I don't know, but that's life. Things are always changing. I mean, like, we think of today's music the same as people 10 years older than us.
Sure,
think of punk rock. Imagine what.
But it seems like there's a lot there's a lot more of business driven now, from the musician standpoint.
Yeah, it's also the physicality. You can't touch it anymore. You see, all your music's in a cloud. I mean, big part of my growing up listening to music was zoning out on the cover, just reading the lyrics and just completely zoning out, so.
To this day, one of my favorite.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry.
You froze there. So
sorry.
But that was it. Big part. Like I was saying, big part of the, was holding this giant cover, a piece of art in your hand, and reading the lyrics. And it was like reading a book. You're just like, your mind would just go, and you just sit there gazing at this album cover. So now it's all on the cloud, and you're sort of listening to it on your phone, and your music comes bundled with your cable TV and your whatever else,
yeah,
and your internet, and it's not, there's no record stores anymore. But whatever, that's just, life goes on. It's just a different thing now. But like I said, it's who knows, it might even come back. we might get a generation of new Luddites who.
Well, there is like a definite love for vinyl. Like there are still people putting out vinyl.
Oh yeah.
So back in the day, some of my favorite album covers were Jethro Tull, like Stand Up, and was it Thick as a Brick that was like the newspaper?
Yeah.
Do you have particular album covers that like really resonate and kind of stick in your mind?
Like King Crimson, Court of the King, Crimson King. That was a big album in my youth. I actually painted the cover like a bit of an artist, and I painted that as a teenager. I made a painting of that cover, so it's stamped in my mind.
Yeah. Do you still paint?
No, I don't. I do. A bit of folk art, but not much. Genesis covers, the early Genesis covers, Foxtrot and Nursery Crime, just that type of things. Those mostly prog rock. I was a big prog rock guy, and then disco happened. I was a front and center for that, and then new wave for me was a combination of prog rock and disco. It was electronic music with a dance beat. So I was that's what I brought to the table anyway.
Nice. So are you guys looking to get back out on the road? I'm not sure how it's such like a crapshoot now with the pandemic and how things are going, but
well, we've got a tour booked. This is the 40th anniversary of the Rhythm of Youth album with Safety Dance. So we've got a tour plan. We're starting in May in the UK. We've got 2 weeks in the UK, 2 weeks in Europe and Germany, and we're on a Lost 80s tour this summer with the English Beat and Flock of Seagulls and Wang Chung.
Oh wow!
And then so it's going to be fun. It's going to be that is if everything lifts, but it's been opening up. I mean, we started playing last year. We started playing at the end of last year. We did the Summerfest in Wisconsin and stuff like that. And so I think I'm pretty sure it's a go for this summer. I think people are ready to party.
Yeah, it's so funny to see like these throwback tours with like like Poison and Motley Crue and like all the bands that I grew up, playing the bigger venues that they couldn't play before because they didn't have the following, and it still throws me because every once in a while I'll put on the radio and it'll be like the oldie station and they'll be playing Nirvana and I'll be like, oh my God, like was it that annoying to my parents too? Like it's just so like it's not old, it's not that old.
It happens to everybody. I remember watching PBS when I was a teenager and watching these these tours of 50s stars like the Platters and Chubby Checker and all this, and going, ooh,
that was so long ago.
So it's just life, it's just life.
So how does touring change from the days of hurling TVs out hotel windows to now? Like, is it
the biggest change for me? I keep saying is the hotel keys. I just like
yeah.
It's just like so like every one set of twice they don't work or you forget what room you're in or whatever. Anyway, no, the tours are. What's different now is that I got the original fans are there and they're bringing their kids, and sometimes their grandkids. So it's a blast. I'm so blessed to be like have been able to, to pierce through the generational barriers of music and that people can still like there's still shows like Glee, for example, that just brought us such a huge amount of new listeners and I mean that's besides the Simpsons and stuff, like all the pop culture stuff that was there, all the cartoons and whatnot, but no, it's great.
Reference going around Simpson that
in fact this musical art.
Oh, sorry, I think we had a little hiccup there in our connection.
Yeah.
All right. How weird is it that like when you're referencing something like the Simpsons, is that like does someone call you up and be like, hey, did you see the Simpsons? Or like how does that come to be? Did you get advance notice?
Yeah, we get we know it's coming, but it's always a blast when somebody calls you and say, hey, I saw you on the Simpsons last night. So it's great. my favorite is still Beavis and Butthead,
Yeah.
where they say, "Who does this guy think he is? Michael Jackson? He's saying he can dance, but he can't dance." That's right up there.
Yeah, that's amazing. So do you, after this tour, you guys looking to write more? Like you said, usually you take some years off, or are you kind of
No, what
feeling
happened
the
this
juices?
time?
Yeah.
No, we feel the juice this time because it really definitely lit a fire under us. We can't wait to get back into studio now and put out part 3. It's we recorded a lot more stuff than we released anyway this time. We got a bunch of stuff in the can, and we're just going to go and pump out some more stuff. It's the singles market that the business has turned into is, it can be a good thing too. It's gives people the option, so we're all for that.
Is there pressure for you to do like the social media end of it, or do you have someone else that does that? And how do you
I have
deal with
people
all that?
I have people working that. There's people who know how that works more than I do. It's like but that's just part of the game. It's part of the evolution. In my day it was videos, like, hey dude, we got to stop the tour for a week now because you got to fly to England and do a video. And what? And okay, I'll do it. And that was that back then. So it's every generation has their new sort of way of getting their message across. And it's interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, I think one of the reasons that we can still go out there and do our thing though is because when I turn on the radio, I hear a lot of 80s influence in the music. I hear a lot of big drum sounds and samples and synthesizers and all kinds of stuff. It reminds me of the 80s. Like a guy like The Weeknd. It's like awesome. I listen to it's great.
Yeah, it's one of those like kind of cyclical things.
I wish stuff like the 80s. No, it's great. It's awesome. It's like I say, it's one of the things that's let us stay out there and keep touring and keep playing. People like, do you find it hard to have to adapt your music to to today and whatever, and come up with new things or fit in with what's going on? I go, no, I don't, not really, because I turn on the radio and all I hear is people adapting to me, so it's like not that hard.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's music's so cyclical. It's like I remember when I was in high school, it was the grunge move, and everyone was like getting back into like Neil Young and Zeppelin, and now I hear bands like Foster the People and 21 Pilots, and they sound like they're right out of the 80s. I mean, it's
oh yeah.
Do you ever envision like a crossover tour where it's not kind of a lost 80s, but some of the 80s act in some current?
Yeah, no, we would definitely. We're looking at that right now. Actually, we're looking at hooking up with that and going out there and doing the sort of the 80s thing. The 80s thing is, I mean, it's it's fun. There's a big market for it now because of all the the demographic. All these people, their kids have left home, and they got a lot of they got extra cash and time on their hands, and some people are looking at the early show to show, and 55-year-old hat heads. So it's cool.
Awesome. So for the new albums, do you spend as much time on the album art where it's not quite as a big deal anymore? Is it still an important factor to you, or?
Nah, anyway, our artwork has always been, we've always used the logo type of thing anyway. Yeah. So it's like these days you just got to make sure you can see it like the size of like quarter of a postage stamp. So it's like, make sure you can tell. So when we use the logo, does pretty good because you can shrink it down pretty far and you can still see what it is.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Awesome.
But that's one of the arts that's one of the things that's lost to it. Of the old school was like gatefold and folding. I remember albums. I had some albums that it was like 8 folds in the thing. you'd have to spread it out on the floor, to read it. It was like, and those things are lost ever, but that's just what it is. That's just what it is. Like I say, nothing's written in stone. These things could come back.
I've always been a huge fan of the concert posters, the 11x17, Kozik and Coop and all these amazing artists that did stuff. And I still see bands doing it. I was at a local show and they had one, so I grabbed it because it was phenomenal. But so I still think art and music will always be hand in hand in some level.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I have friends who put on a festival in Montreal called Oshiaga. And they have an art director, a friend of mine, Pat Hamu, who makes these awesome posters. Like every year, he's got just like, and he does other posters too. But every year, they have just the most brilliant, like these 60s and 70s style, influence posters. It's just great. It's great.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Where can our listeners go online to find you or find the albums and all that?
Pretty much everywhere. It's on all the platforms. It's on all the Spotify's and YouTubes, and you can go to our website, safetydance.com, to pick up physical copies and other kinds of merch, and Amazon. It's like wherever good music is sold.
Do you guys put it out on vinyl?
We're going to look at vinyl this time. We haven't put out vinyl. We're going to serious this time though. I have friends in a band called Voivod, and they put out vinyl all the time, and it's so awesome. Like they're colored vinyl with double albums and shit. It's great.
Yeah, I see more people buying vinyl than CDs. It just seems like people still love that. But I want to say thank you for taking the time to talk to us, man. This was great.
My pleasure.
And we wish you the best of luck on tour, and feel free to let us know if you have anything else you want to come on and talk about. And thank you so much. And for our listeners, we thank you for listening, and we'll catch you guys again next week. And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.